Today, we're going on a journey to the very edge of what we think intelligence is. We're going to wind through the hard logic of engineering, dip into the ancient strategies of evolution, and land right in the middle of the artificial minds we're building as we speak. So, get ready to question everything you thought you knew about control, about stability, and, well, about what it really means to be smart. You know, we're all taught that intelligence is about mastery, right? It's about bending the world to your will to get what you want. But what if that whole model, what if our entire idea of what it means to be effective is just based on a huge misunderstanding? And hey, what about stability? We chase after it, we design systems for it, and we always assume it's some kind of final destination, a perfect, unshakable place you get to. But what if real stability isn't about arriving and just staying put? What if it's something way more dynamic? Something that actually embraces a little bit of chaos. And here's the real kicker. What if nature, in its quiet, evolutionary way, already solved a problem that our smartest engineers are still tearing their hair out over? What if the answer's been hiding in plain sight this whole time? So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so our story actually starts in a pretty surprising place, the world of control theory. It's a whole field of engineering dedicated to one thing, really, making things stable. And for the longest time, the way to do that seemed totally obvious. The classic idea? It's super simple. You picture a landscape of valleys and hills. Your goal is the very bottom of the lowest valley. That's your optimal state. So you just design your system to always roll downhill. You minimize any error, you reduce any deviation, and eventually the ball just settles perfectly at the bottom. And boom, stability achieved? This works great for simple systems. But of course, the real world is way messier. It's got rules. It's got constraints. I mean, just think about parking a car. You can go forward, you can go backward, you can turn the steering wheel. But what you can't do is just, slide it sideways into a tight parking spot. I wish you could, but you can't. That physical rule, that constraint, changes everything. That simple roll downhill strategy can get you completely stuck. And this leads to this absolutely profound insight from a control theorist named Roger Brockett. Here's what he figured out. Just because you have the power to get a system from point A to point B, that's what controllable means, it doesn't mean you can find a simple, smooth rule to make it settle down at the target. Power does not guarantee convergence. The very geometry of the problem can make a perfect, stable landing impossible. So, if that perfect, deterministic dream of a smooth ride to equilibrium is just off the table for these complex systems, what do? What's left? Well, control theory gives us an answer that at first sounds completely bonkers. Yeah, you do the one thing every engineer is trained to eliminate. You add randomness. You inject tiny, unpredictable wiggles into the system. The very thing you thought was the enemy, noise, error, jitter, turns out to be the key to the whole puzzle. And this, right here, this changes the whole game. The entire meaning of stability gets flipped on its head. See, the old model, deterministic stabilization, that was all about arriving. You reach the target, you stay there, and you eliminate any and all deviation. But this new model, stochastic stabilization, it's about hovering. You just remain near the target. You actually accept fluctuation. You don't get rid of deviation, you organize it. That little bit of noise keeps the system from getting stuck, and instead it kind of nudges it into a stable cloud of probability around the goal. It's not about a perfect path anymore. It's about shaping a stable density. And what's so wild is that this radical new idea from engineering, it isn't new at all. In fact, it's ancient. Nature figured this out eons ago. Its solutions are literally all around us. You just have to know how to look. Just picture a stick insect. It doesn't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. It survives by basically being invisible. It doesn't eliminate the danger. It aligns itself with the statistical pattern of its environment, the distribution of all the shapes and colors and textures of the twigs around it. It becomes part of the noise. It's the exact same story with a leaf butterfly. It's not like it magically becomes a leaf. That's impossible. What it does is approximate the features of a leaf so well that a predator's brain is way more likely to just file it away as background clutter. It's not about achieving a perfect identity. It's about distributional alignment. It survives by becoming statistically insignificant. So this forces us to look at something like deception in a totally new light. In this context, it's not a moral thing. It's not about lying. It's a structural strategy. It's what you do to survive when you're constrained. When you can't beat the predator, you reshape its perception. When you can't control reality, you align with its probabilities.
And if you zoom all the way out, this is exactly how evolution itself works on a massive scale. You've got random mutations, that's your noise, your randomness, and then you have natural selection, which is the force that shapes the distribution of which traits survive. It's basically planetary scale stochastic optimization. Evolution never arrives at one single final perfect organism. It's always hovering around what works, always fluctuating, always adapting.
Okay, so this brings us right to our own doorstep, right to the artificial intelligence that's reshaping our world. Because as it turns out, our most advanced AIs today run on exactly this principle of statistical alignment, not deterministic truth.
So how does something like a large language model really work? Under the hood. It doesn't have a giant encyclopedia of true answers. That's not how it thinks. Instead, what it's done is learn the incredibly complex statistical patterns of all the human language it's been fed, the probability of which word or phrase or idea is likely to follow another. So when it gives you an answer, it's actually just sampling from that massive probability distribution it learned. Its behavior is stabilized statistically, not by looking up some single deterministic fact. And this insight, it completely changes how we should think about AI hallucinations. If you're looking for one perfect true answer, then yeah, a hallucination looks like a bug, a failure. But if you understand this is a stochastic system, you realize it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's the natural outcome of a system designed to sample from a cloud of possibilities, not to retrieve one single fixed fact. So here's the bottom line on this. The goal of this kind of AI isn't to get rid of uncertainty and give you perfect truth. Its real job is to organize uncertainty. It takes the infinite chaos of all possible language and shapes it into a coherent, probable structure that it can then draw from. Okay, so what do we get when we put all these pieces together? Control theory, evolution, AI. We get a really different, and I think much more profound vision of what intelligence actually is, especially when you're up against a world that's just impossibly complex. You've basically got these two competing models of intelligence, right? On one side, there's the classical model we all grew up with. The goal is to arrive, to eliminate all deviation, to reach that perfect final equilibrium. It's a model based on control and domination. And then there's this other model, the stochastic one. Here, the goal is to hover, to concentrate probability, to shape uncertainty. It's a model of alignment and adaptation. And this leads to a pretty radical conclusion. Maybe the highest form of intelligence, especially in a world you can't possibly predict or control, isn't about domination at all. Maybe it's the art of statistical invisibility, the ability to align so perfectly with the texture of reality that you thrive, not by conquering it, but by becoming a seamless, elegant part of its flow. Because when you can't guarantee a perfect landing, when the world is just too complex to be pinned down to a single point of truth, intelligence has to become something else. It becomes the subtle, powerful art of shaping uncertainty itself. You know, this stuff is really deep, and we've just barely scratched the surface here. For anyone who wants to dive into the full technical details behind all this, the original article is available on my blog. Thanks for watching.